Hi everyone, and welcome to the teddy bear demo. Here we're going to have some components we have to make first. So I'm getting some Fetra white here, and we're going to make a little twisty or little red and white cane for around the teddy bear's neck. So here I'm going to clean up a little bit of this white rod here. So I'm going to go ahead and make this little twisty first, and then we'll get into the sculpting the teddy bear. But we'll end up using this little twisty later on. So your prep work, I just included this in the demo. Most people should know how to make twisties, by this time, or if you don't, here's a little demo for it. So here I'm just going to melt some glass, and basically I'm going to build up a little paddle, kind of like just like a little oar or something that you'd, paddle in a canoe with. Real similar shape. Like I said, this is a Fetra white, so most any white will work. So we're just building the gather. And I'm going to reach up there and I'm going to give it a little smash, and we'll get it all nice and shapely. It's getting a little floppy on me there, so just trying to let things cool down. I like to make my paddles nice and square, that way I can lay the glass on straight and I know exactly where it's going. I mean, some people do round paddles, but you know, to each their own. Whatever works for whatever it is that you want to do. I try to start off with a good foundation and make me a nice square paddle, put some heat into it, and then I'll stripe these red lines on. Now you could just, stripe some glass onto a rod, and you can make a little twisty that way if you don't need a whole bunch. But, usually I'll make 2 or 3 of these, and so I'll make a little cane and pull it out. And this is a Fetra medium red, if anybody's wanting to know. And I'm just striping the glass on. I'll probably do it on both sides. I'm going to leave the white around the outside edges. But this is, pretty quick. Just trying to make sure I don't trap any air, and just, swiping it on nice and easy. And you want a pretty good even layer all the way through. And now I'll give it a little touch down, make sure it's all nice and even. And then I'll stripe the other side. There we go, just layering it on one side just like I did the other side, and I'll clean up any holes I got or any cavities. Just want to make sure you don't trap any air. And I'm going to go ahead and put a punty on the other side so I have a nice piece to work with. Now you could go ahead and build up a moil, some sacrilegious glass, so to say, if you need to, but for this little small piece, this isn't very big, so I just kind of go ahead and just melt it in, and I'll push it and pull it back and forth, kind of make sure that it's, moving around before I go ahead and twist it up or start to pull it. So here I'm just building the heat to it, trying to get the heat right to the core, that way it's moving around a little bit. You'll see me push and pull it together here. There we go. It's starting to move a little bit now. I know that the core is starting to get a little warm. Once I know all the glass is flowing and moving a little bit, then I can go ahead and start twisting it up. And here I'm just flashing in the heat, trying not to boil that red. You don't want to boil it, just keeping it warm. And now it's starting to flow and move around, so now I'll go ahead and start my twist. Once I get the twist started, then I can figure out which side has the most heat. And the thicker side I'm going to pull from the ceiling, trying to keep it nice and level. Just pull it out. Every once in a while I'm spinning one hand a little faster than the other. That way I can just keep pulling and twisting it out. And you don't need a whole bunch. Like I said, I'm just using a little bit of piece of this to put around the neck of the teddy bear. And so I'll go ahead and just flame cut off this section that I want to keep. And that's pretty much all you need from the twisty. I'll nip that off and use it later. And so now we'll just get into making the teddy bear itself. We'll put that twisty on later. But I added that in there so everybody have a little idea, you know, hey, you got to make some prep work before you start this, because you're going to need that piece, you know, through the end of it. You can't just go ahead and make that while you're trying to keep that warm. I mean, you could go ahead and stick it in the kiln while you're doing it, but it's a lot easier to have your prep work ready to go. So here I'm just, you know, gathering up a little bit of glass. Looks like my little light was flickering a little bit. So I'm using the end of one rod and just kind of make sure I don't waste any glass there, and utilizing everything I can. And I'm just going to build up a gather. Now this is you know, the end of a piece of rod. It's not the normal way I build a gather, but it's all funky looking and everything else. So I'm just trying to make sure I melt all that glass in. I don't want it to, like, you know, create any bubbles or anything like that, or any cavities. But you just want to build up a gather glass. And I wanted to use that whole piece, so now I can kind of add a little bit more glass. So I'll reach up there and attach that punty too, and then I can add some more glass to it. And by the way, I mean, this is a Fetra too. It's the ivory, so that's what I start out with the body on. And the ivory in a Fetra, it gets a little soupy sometimes, and it's hard to tell what it is. The glow, when you lose the color of the ivory and it starts to, you know, turn like a clear, you know you got a lot of heat into it. And it doesn't take much to move that ivory. It's kind of like the white in the Fetra. Once it turns clear, it's movable pretty quick. So here we're just building up the body of the teddy bear. And here now I'll go ahead and burn that punny off, and I think I got enough glass there that we can go ahead and continue. So I'm just trying to keep it on center and letting that gather build up to where it's not moving around so much. And I'm trying to let this kind of gravity help me a little bit. Just trying to keep it warm and make the shape that I need, the rough shape. And once I get the shape that I need, then we can move on to the next section, add the feet and stuff like that, or the legs. It looks like I like the shape I got there, and now I'm going to go ahead and, we're going to go ahead and add some of the legs. And again, I'm still using ivory. Just warm it up there, and then when I place these legs on it, it's important that you place them towards the bottom. I mean, we're going to flatten it out and everything, and I'm going to create a little butt on this thing so that it has a little crack, and they're kind of cute like that. So that's what we do. So right here, I'm just adding this section on one side for the leg that I'll pull forward. I'll burn that side off, and you want to try to make sure you get the same amount of glass on the other side. That way they look symmetrical. And then I'll burn that part off, and I'll take a look at it and see if I need to add more glass or take some off on one side, so forth. So kind of get that one a little warm, and I'll look at them. And I'm going to say, okay, maybe I need to take some more glass off, or I need to add some more glass. This is the section where you want to do it. Alright, so I'm going to take my knife here, and what I'm doing is I'm just making a little flat spot. And that's kind of like the, the little joint that's going to attach to, so I can make the leg pull out. Making sure there's no undercuts there or anything like that. I'll melt that back in. And there's two little nubs. Well, that's just a rough shape. Pump some heat back into the core of it a little bit. Always trying to keep it warm. And then I'll go ahead and place the leg on for one side. I'm just slightly pulling all that glass forward, still keeping the thickness, but just slightly pulling it forward just a little bit. Once I think I got enough glass, then I'll burn it off. And you can see it's pretty clear, so I mean it's pretty soupy. Just got to be careful and make sure you keep that temperature down a little bit so it doesn't flop on you. I'm going to lay the second leg on, and I'll pull it forward a little bit. It looks like I got a little extra glass, so I'm trying to melt it and pull it at the same time just a little bit so I make it the same thickness as the other side. You don't want one thicker than the other. And then I'll burn that off. I got a little too much glass on there, it looks like. Maybe I'm going to tweezer some off. So I'll pull a little bit. And now I'm pushing it into place where I want it to go. Making sure it's thickening up. Looks like I need to pull it just a little bit. There we have it. I'll pump some heat into the other side and then start to make sure they look symmetrical in the same shape. Add a little bit more glass to one so I make sure it's the same size as the other one. And I'll pump some heat back into the core. Definitely want to make sure you keep it warm. And now I touch down a little bit, straight up and down. Again, you could take a tool and push into the bottom of this to create a cavity so that it doesn't rock back and forth or anything. And then I'll flatten the front of his feet. That way I can place some dots on there so it appears that he has some, toes and stuff like that. Now I'm heating the back part up here. This is where I'll create the little cavity or the butt crack. They kind of look cute that way. And just roll it around and I'll round out the back end of it. And now I'm going to place little dots on to make their appearance to be toes and stuff like that. Pump some heat into it. Looks like I need to clean that rod up just a little bit. And this rod here I'm using, it's a Fetra 2 as well. I'm pulling out a little stringer here. That way I can attach these little dots. You could have that stringer pulled ahead of time. I'll place the top dot first, and then 2 dots on the side of it. And then I'll go ahead and press those dots in just a little bit. That way they stay the same size when I'm melting them in a little bit too. Not really making sure they spread. I just want them melted in at that same size. So I'm just touching them down. And if you're wondering what color that is, that's topaz, and it's a Fetra 2 as well. Again, the other foot, one on top, and then one on each side of it, kind of like a triangle. And I'll press those ones in. I'll pump some heat into it, and then I'll go ahead and make the punty onto the back close to where the butt is, and that's where the we'll end up cutting it off later on. Oh. This here, we're going to make the arms now. I was wrong. That's alright. We'll end up making that punty later on, but right now I guess we're going to do the arms next, so almost forgot what I was doing. Trying to get ahead of myself there. So we'll place these arms on, and then we'll place the little topaz dots onto it next, on these little arms. The key here is to go ahead and make sure you make them the same size. Getting the proportion down is probably the hardest part. And you want to place them in the same spot on each side too. You don't want one arm hanging way up, one arm hanging way down. So I'll flatten these out just a little bit on the end. And it looks like I'm going to go ahead and place those dots on to have the appearance of those have claws or toes, whatever you want to call them. Again, one dot on top, and then one to the right and one to the left. So I had one a little too long there, so I'm cleaning it up. Now I'll push these ones in. There we have it. Now I'm probably going to go ahead and make that punty. Just cleaning things up, moving it around a little bit the way I like it. Getting some heat into everything. And now we're going to add that punny on the back. I'm going right above the crack that I made for the butt. And you can use this punty here if you pull it, you know, not super thin, but you know, probably about 1 millimeter. You can use it as the stand portion of it too as well, or you can cut it off like I normally do and just use it as the it's like a little ball for its tail. And now that's all on symmetrical and nice and straight. Now I'm going to go ahead and build up for the head. So I warm that section up. And then proportion wise, you just got to get control of that. Once you have that proportion down for the head, you'll be good to go. I'm just building a gather up basically for the head. I'm just melting that in. You want to leave it just a little thin on the neck area because we're going to be placing that twisty on here in just a few moments. So you want to make sure that that's all nice and warm so that it can accept the glass. But you don't want your head to squat down on top of that. You need to leave enough room for that to be, twisted around there. And here I'm going to turn my torch down a little bit. I want a nice little pinpoint flame so I make sure I don't get any fractures, and I'm only heating up the section I want to apply that stringer to. So I need to lay it on its chest a little bit, so I got to make sure it's nice and warm there still. And I'll just start from one side, heat it up nice and easy, and then I'll start laying it down, pushing it in, make sure I don't create any cavities. You don't want to trap any air because then they'll fracture off. And you want to make sure that you go around the neck, obviously. And I'm just kind of flashing it in the heat, rolling it around the neck, and I'm going to bring it forward and then lay it down in front. And then just burn it off. And I'm just going to kind of slightly tap it. You don't want to push in too hard. You'll lose the stripes. Just making sure everything looks nice and it's heated up. And we're good to go. And that's why it's important to have that twisty ready ahead of time. You don't want to be doing this while it's still cooling down because you could have a problem with that fracturing. So here I'm just melting it in, making sure that I got plenty of heat in that neck area. Make sure that's all, no undercuts are in there. Now we're going to heat up a gather of glass, and this is going to be the nose section. I'm just going to pull a little bit of that off, and then we're going to go ahead and round it out there. Flatten the nose a little bit. And now I'm going to turn my torch down quite a bit, back to the pinpoint flame. Make sure you keep some heat into the head for later on. And I'm just putting a dot right on top of its nose. And I am using that topaz. You could, do a little black nose if that's what you'd prefer. Some people like that too. And I do it from time to time as well. I'm just kind of melting the top of that nose in. I just like it with the topaz. I think it looks a little bit better. Now here I'm going to go ahead and cut the mouth in just right underneath that topaz. I still want to keep the round shape to it. That way it looks like a nose, of course. And now I'm going to place a couple eyeballs on. And I'm just using these raised black dots, basically is all they are. Now you can start seeing the take shape here. You want to melt them in. You don't want them to flake off later, so make sure they're attached. May have got a little too much black ones. I'm going to pull some off. That way they're symmetrical. You don't want one eye bigger than the other. Unless that's what you're going for. You want some googly eyes. There we go. You just need to figure out how much glass you need for the ears. I just attach that second ear on there, and you want to try to make them symmetrical. Make sure you lay down the same amount of glass for each side. Give them a little smash. Looks like I had a little too much glass in there, so I'm going to pull some glass off. Remelt it back in a little bit, and then give it a little smash. And now they look pretty close to the same size. And then I'm going to take that same topaz, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a little dot and put right inside those ears. It gives it a little bit of character. One little dot on each side, and then I'll go ahead and use the mashers to mash them in. And I'm spreading it too as well. That way they're inside the ear and there's no undercuts. It's all one piece of glass now. Nice and happy. And now I'm heating up the back of the ear, and I'm going to kind of, curl them up just a little bit. Makes it look like they're listening, I guess. I don't know, I just like to curl them up a little bit on tops and on the side. There we have it. And now I'm going to take the clothespin and I'm going to go ahead and attach it here. Whatever feels comfortable. Sometimes those clothespins, they don't open up far enough to grab the whole head because you got ears are bigger, but wherever it's comfortable to grab onto, as long as it's not going to slip off, then I'm going to just reach up there and burn that tail off. And normally what I do is I'll clean that tail up, make it a nice little round ball on the end, or you can leave it like that, and that way it has a third leg to stand on too as well. Sometimes it makes them a little more stable that way, but there you have it. Cute little teddy bear. Alright, thanks for watching.